Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know. Now it's showtime.
Well, Trump and Russia and Ukraine are in the news. We're going to talk about that. Also, boomers. We have some fears that Gen Y and Gen Z don't understand. And could our Secretary of Transportation be right? Maybe. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Uncensored, unfiltered, unhinged. It's the Karel Cast. Listen daily on your favorite streaming service.
It is the Crowdcast. I am Karel. Happy Tuesday, November 25th, just 2 short days away from Thanksgiving. So glad you're here with us. Boomers have 10 fears that Gen Z and Gen Y and Gen Alpha do not understand. We're going to talk about that since many of you are boomers or Gen X, so you're boomer adjacent. Also, it's screener season. We're going to tell you about some of the movies you should and should not watch. Is our Secretary of Transportation right about flying? Could he be right about anything? And Trump and Russia and Ukraine are in the news. But I want to start with holidays. We are 2 days away from Thanksgiving. I see Christmas stuff already up. And I want to tell you why it is important, even if you don't deck the halls and decorate and do all that, that you at least take some time, have a holiday. Now, this morning, I got up at my normal time. So we got back from the park by 8:30. Oh, my God. And Jeannie lost Sassy, one of the Chihuahuas. We couldn't find her anywhere. And she's like, well, she wouldn't leave the park. But she was this little Chihuahua in a red sweater. We couldn't find her. We finally found her after walking almost half a mile around the park. She had gone back to be with a group of people. She got confused about where we all were, and she went back. But I told her if it was Ember, I'd be calling 911. I'd be having helicopters fly in. Of course, Ember has a GPS on her neck. Speaking of Ember, I got to tell you, this morning, I found what looks like part of a tooth on the floor. And the vet is stumped because I looked in her mouth and I can't see. So she has a Cytopoint shot today. So we're going to bring the tooth. And, it's like home repair. When you're a homeowner, something happens and you go $500 because you just know. When I saw that tooth, I thought, $1,300. We'll see. Very excited today. I get my new Mac for the show, the Mac Studio Pro. I'm so excited. Yes, 0% interest for 12 months. So what the hell? Why not, right? So anyway, big about holidays. I was doing my planning for the next couple weeks, putting in the doctor's appointments, putting in the various things, and because I got my new day planner for next year. And I thought to myself, every year between Christmas and New Year's, you pre-record shows. And so you post new content, but you're not there. It's pre-recorded, but it's new. It's new, but it's pre-recorded. Are you going to do that again this year? And I thought, well, I guess, maybe, I don't know. And then I thought, yes, you are. In between Christmas and New Year's, you're going to post pre-recorded shows. There'll be good shows. There'll be great content. You guys will love them, but they'll be pre-recorded. And I thought, because you've done 157 shows already this year. I keep track. And, you kind of need to step away from it for a couple weeks. And that got me thinking, a lot of us don't observe holidays. We don't acknowledge them or observe them or take time for them. Many of us can't. You work in retail or you're a first responder or something. But if you can, it's important to step away. He's giving himself, a couple weeks holiday. It's important to step away from something, even if you love it. I love this show. I do. But by the time Christmas rolls around, 160, 170 shows in the year, I'm ready to step back a little bit and just not talk every day for a couple weeks. So I will be recorded the week of Christmas and the week of New Year. New shows, but recorded. Hopefully, if I can ever... See, that means I got to do 2 shows a day for 2 weeks. But whatever. I just wanted to say it's important to give yourself a break. So if you're not planning to give yourself a break, give yourself a break. It has been a rough year. It really has. And, we got to step back from it and enjoy ourselves. Just have some fun or just do nothing. Just sit in a chair with a blanket and watch movies all season. Whatever it is that makes you happy, you need to do it around the holidays. Because January is going to have all new horrors and challenges. And it's, this time of year is time to concentrate on family, friends, yourself, replenishment, and renewal. And so I hope you will take the time to do that this holiday season. I really do. Renew.
If you're not visiting reallykarel.com daily, you're missing out. Get the podcast, videos, and the blog, including recipes at reallykarel.com. That's really Karel.com.
Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know.
All right. So this morning, our Secretary of War, by the way, the Sido Point shot, $120. This morning, our Secretary of War determined that the U.S. government is not going to do any more business with the Boy Scouts. They're not going to. They normally provide soldiers and medical equipment for the big jamboree that the Boy Scouts have up in the mountains. In case of emergency, they're there. Their medics are there. All that. They're not going to do any of that anymore. And Congress makes the Department of Defense or War involved with the Boy Scouts, but they can get out of it with a national security clause. And so Pete is saying that because of the border and because of all this other stuff, the troops are needed elsewhere. But his main complaint is, get this, that the Boy Scouts are not masculine enough. That's his big thing. This guy that can't do 3 pull-ups, who looks gayer than I do. He looks like if you got him drunk, he'd screw anything that moved. This guy says the Boy Scouts are not masculine enough. They took the word boy out of their title, so they're just the Scouts. And they let women in. He cited this as one of the reasons they let girls in. Number 2, he says they don't give enough boys space. Sounds pretty gay to me. Number 3, he says they're too woke, that they are teaching the Boy Scouts to be diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Good men. They're trying to prep them to be good men. But he says, no. And he says too woke, that they're just too woke. So now, ending an almost 80-year tradition, he is saying the military will no longer be involved with the Scouts of America. That is, these people, Jesus, what, come on. Now look, I was never a Boy Scout, ever. It just seemed too gay for me. It really did. Wait, you got to wear little costumes, you get in drag. It's drag. So you got to get in drag in these bizarre looking little costumes. And then they didn't allow gay people for the longest time. They didn't allow gay instructors or whatever. It turns out they had tons of pedophilia going on anyway. And because remember, gays are not pedophiles. Okay, gay men do not want to sleep with young boys. That is, gay men like men. Okay, they don't like boys. If you like boys, you're a pedophile. So of course, and that's how I saw it. When I was a kid, I told my mom, I don't want to go there and be molested by the damn scout leader. Oh, Chucky, that doesn't happen. Oh, really? What kind of pervy guy dresses up in that outfit and then goes and teaches a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds? Sorry, pervert, that's who. So I was never a scout. I never was into it. I don't want to say don't condone it. I don't not condone it, but I've always thought the organization was weird, especially when they didn't allow girls. I'm like, this is too gay for me. So Pete has said, oh my God, didn't that just make it worse? So Pete said that no more. The U.S. military will now not be involved, and he's invoking the national security of our nation, saying that the troops are needed elsewhere. Like what? Venezuela, which 74% of people surveyed said they do not support Donald Trump and his Venezuela folly. Because he has failed to tell us why we need to be there. That's the first reason. They're like, well, what do we need to be there for? So that was the first thing. Pete Hegebegger, the guy that can't do 4 pull-ups, who says that the troops have to be more physically fit and yet isn't himself. The guy who looks like he sleeps with men on the down low, or at least trans people, has decided that the Boy Scouts of America is not masculine enough for the military to support anymore. I could read you the story. I'm not making this up. There is a story in the major media. The other story in major media that isn't getting enough attention. Elon Musk has now made X so you can see where the account is from. And what we have found out is the top 50 MAGA influencer accounts are not Americans. They're not MAGA. They're not Americans. And some believe that they are, in fact, being paid by Elon Musk to I don't know what, disrupt, I guess. And so we have MAGA now in a fit. But something Steve sent me this morning just was so poignant. It was a post by someone named, who is this? Max Berger posted, if I'm understanding this correctly, X is owned by a white nationalist, Elon Musk, and he is. X is owned by a white nationalist who pays poor people of color in developing countries to pretend to be working class white Americans to scare other white Americans into being afraid of poor people of color from developing countries because they're going to ruin America. And I laughed out loud because that is a perfect description of exactly what's going on. Elon Musk and others are paying individuals in other countries to, be MAGA and fearmonger people in our country. And that's just the most amusing thing to me. It's the most amusing thing to me. And it should be a bigger story. It should be a much bigger story that, MAGA has been duped. That really they have been. They follow these accounts. They regurgitate what the account says. It shaped the election cycle both back in 2016 and 2024. And no one's accountable because Elon Musk is the world's richest man. So basically, it tells us that this election was bought and paid for by Elon Musk for Donald Trump. That Elon Musk messed with the voting machines, because he did, and Trump thanked him for it publicly. I could play you the soundbite of Trump saying, thank you, Elon Musk. He sure knows those computers. We won the swing states, every swing state. All in the same breath, he said that, which any person would then allude that Elon Musk had something to do with Trump winning the swing states with those machines. And now we see that he paid people in China, Romania, Indonesia, all over the place to pretend to be MAGA accounts, spread disinformation, and these gullible maggots just gobbled it up like it was real. This is a huge scandal, quite frankly. And if they were a TV network or a newspaper, they'd be put out of business. But it's just some platform owned by the world's richest man, so it's untouchable. But they literally created fake MAGA accounts, turned them into huge influential accounts that took money, which came from Elon, no doubt, so Trump could win, so other maggots could win, and so it seemed like all the info out there was MAGA, when it's all fake. And that's what Trump is, and that's what MAGA is. It's fake patriotism, it's smoke and mirrors, it's deflection and dodging, it's misinformation, and it's outrage for outrage's sake. It's all contrived. It's all manufactured. And these 77 million people fell right into it because they are of low intelligence. About 1% of MAGA is not low intelligence. They're the ones taking advantage of the other 99% of MAGA. And that other 99% are people of lower intelligence and impossible critical thinking. Because anyone that stays with a party where the leader is a criminal, where the leader does not do what he pledges he was going to do when he got into office, and he hasn't done any of it, and then you find out that the information that you've been receiving is fake, manufactured, and from a foreign entity, and you still stay with that party, you don't have the brains of a rock. And it's okay to say that because it's in evidence. So today we find out the Boy Scouts aren't masculine enough, that the U.S. government no longer wants to help or supply needs for the Boy Scouts because they're not masculine enough, because they don't have enough places for the boys to, quote, be boys, because they allow girls in, and because they want diversity, equity, and inclusion included in being a scout. Heaven forbid you should create well-rounded young men. So Peter Hegeberger is saying, nope, that's it. Then we find out that a majority of the information that MAGA is getting about MAGA is not from MAGA, but from people in other countries being paid by someone like Elon Musk to spread misinformation. You know, as I said yesterday, this is truly the Wizard of Oz. MAGA is the party behind the curtain, and they are a party of facades. They're not real. They're not grounded in anything. Their leader is fake with no power. I mean, he has no real power except what the office of the presidency gives him. He's not a powerful man. And they just follow along, just blindly. Go read the comments on my TikTok videos. They're still picking on my teeth, still calling me queer, still picking on my neck, still calling me names. And yet I'm proving beyond the shadow of a doubt that their leader is a fraud. Their movement is a fraud. The information that they consume is fraudulent, and they're too stupid to realize it. Great. It's like Ukraine. Why couldn't they stop Ukraine 4 days after it started? Why now is Trump and Zelensky and Putin? Every war is just old people fighting, and the war ends and young people dying. And the war ends when those old people finally decide it serves no purpose. Israel is still at war. They're still killing Gazans. In Ukraine, Russia is still killing Ukrainians. And it'll stop when the white guys, Trump and Putin, and some white guys from Europe, decide that, okay, it doesn't serve us anymore to have this war, let's end it. If men can end a war after 2 or 3 years, they could have ended it after 2 or 3 days. It shows you that wars end when they're no longer advantageous for the people that started them. And that it has nothing to do with principle. It has nothing to do with sovereignty. And everything to do with money and land and resources. Rare earth minerals, oil, water, whatever it might be. And that they end when the rich white guys say they end. That's why I would never fight one. I would never go to war for the United States unless we were being actually attacked, unless there were people coming onto our shores and attacking us. That's it. That's the only reason I'd go to war. Everything else is just white people fighting, and they decide when it can end. Anything that can be ended by rich guys deciding it's over, that lasts longer than a week, is ridiculous. But Ukraine generated lots of money. Lots. Billions and billions of dollars all told. For who? Arms dealers. Arms dealers. That's all Ukraine is. It's a funnel for arms dealers. And once there's not enough money in it anymore, they'll stop it. So there must not be much money in it now, because now they're talking about stopping it. They could have stopped it a year ago. They could have stopped it 2 days after it started. But no, now we can stop it. Why? What's been accomplished? What has changed? Nothing. They could have ended it a year ago. Oh, well, they could have ended it in January on day one, like Trump said. But did they? No. All right, let's check the chat room at youtube.com/Really Karel. That's youtube.com/Really Karel. There's a real easy way to get to my YouTube, you know. You just go to youtube.reallykarel.com. It takes you right there. youtube.reallykarel.com. Then it takes you right to where you need to be. All right, when we come back, let's talk some movies. It's the holidays. You got time to watch movies. I got a whole bunch of screeners over here that we can talk about. We are going to talk about baby boomers and their biggest fears. And is our transportation secretary right about flying? We got lots to talk about. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back. I promise. I swear. As God is my... As a boy... Well, a boy said. All right, it's my favorite season, screener season. That's like the holidays for me because you got to take time to watch them all, and the holidays is when you have more time. And this is just right here. This is just one supplier of screeners, just one studio. Each studio sends their screeners. Now, I get them all digital, yet some of them still send the DVDs. So I am going to go through some of these, and you can take notes. There'll be a quiz. No, just kidding. And tell you whether you should watch them, whether they're any good, what I've heard about them, that sort of stuff. Because, you know, we don't have to talk politics all the time, especially during the holidays. Let's start with, and which studio is this? Neon? No, A24. A24 is a big studio. So this is called Warfare, okay? Warfare. Now, this movie is written by Alex Garland, who also wrote the movie Civil War. If you haven't seen that, you should. This movie was very hard to watch. This movie called Warfare. And let me tell you why. It is shot like it took place in real time. And you are with a group of embedded soldiers in Iraq, Afghanistan, one hellhole after another. And they're 2 hours of being under attack and how they get out of that situation. Now, the real soldiers involved in this help the filmmakers make the movie to give it realism. And it is very, very real. And the fact that you watch it as if it's real time. So there's no cutting back to backstories. There's no memory recall. It's just like you have a camera in the room for 2 hours with soldiers in Iraq or Afghanistan. It was harrowing. It was hard to watch. It made you realize what a waste Iraq and Afghanistan were, how our soldiers should have never been there, and what odds they were fighting. Because the Afghanis had the home court advantage, as did the Iraqis. Because they're used to fighting with nothing and fighting inside of cities and all of that. So it's called Warfare. It's from A24. It's a good movie. It's great performances in the movie by an entire, all-star cast. But at the same time, it was hard to watch because you feel like you're in war. You feel like you're in battle. All right, next from A24. This is called Bring Her Back. It's a horror movie. It's currently screening. It wasn't as horrific as it could be. It's about a woman that wants to raise her dead daughter from the dead. So she takes 2 adoptive children in and starts practicing rituals on them to raise her dead daughter from the dead. It's, as horror movies go, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give it a 7. Nah, 6. A 6. A lot of predictable, not as horror. It's no Exorcist, okay? I didn't have nightmares after watching it. But it was a decent horror movie. It's called Bring Her Back. All right. After the Hunt, Julia Roberts, Andrew Garfield, all kinds of people, but Brian Grazer production. I have to tell you, Julia Roberts, she really can do no wrong, because even though this movie is probably a 3 out of 4 star movie, maybe 2.5 to 3 stars, her performance is 4 stars. And the girl from The Bear is in here too. Ayo Edebiri and Chloe Sevigny and Andrew Garfield. And so a lot of great actors. And this is one of those movies that we are missing nowadays, which is every movie at the theater now is these big, like Wicked or Marvel. No, this has actors acting, telling you a story. Nothing blows up. There's no special effects. But Julia Roberts, incredible. All right, what else have we got from H1N4? Materialist. You know what? It's a rom-com. It's got, what's his name? From the Avengers. Speaking of the Avengers. Pedro Pascal. And it's got Chris Evans. It's a really cute rom-com. But, again, it's almost a Hallmark movie or a Lifetime movie. We have 2 rich guys dating. She has to decide which one she wants to go with. Obviously, you should have sex with Chris Evans, but marry Pedro Pascal. I recommend it, though. It was fun if you like rom-coms. Highest to Lowest, Denzel Washington as a music executive. It's got action. It's got intrigue. It's, extortion, all that kind of stuff. He's great. He sort of plays like Clarence Avant. I don't know if you know who Clarence Avant was. Huge guy in music. But it's good. It's streaming. I'd give it 4 stars. It's good. Called Highest to Lowest. The Smashing Machine with The Rock. I don't like The Rock anymore ever since he's gone MAGA, but it's a great performance by him. Something unexpected. He plays a boxer. And it's the true story of a UFC legend. It's a movie by Benny Safdie, who's a great director. It didn't get a lot of play because of The Rock. There's Rock backlash right now. But it is a good film. And it's called The Smashing Machine. Eddington is the one you need to watch. Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, set in a small town of Eddington. It takes all the issues of the world, Black Lives Matter, COVID. It takes all of those and boils them down to a very small town. You have the sheriff, Joaquin Phoenix, who doesn't want to wear a COVID mask, who doesn't like the Black Lives Matters protest, even though there's 8 people at the protest in his town. And you have the mayor, Pedro Pascal, who actually believes in COVID and wearing masks and supports Black Lives Matters and all that kind of stuff. But it boils it down to a small town. And it's really, really cute. Lots of dialogue. Great acting. It's called Eddington. I would definitely see that this season if you haven't. The Legend of Oki. Really great movie. The Legend of Oki. I can't really show you the cover because it's green and my green screen blares it out. But it's about a little girl who takes this little creature called an Oki back to its home. And it's about misinterpreting things because they all think the Oki are bad, but they're not. But the beauty of this film is no CGI was used. None. And when you watch it, you wonder, how did they build these sets? How did they have this puppet do these things? It is remarkable. No CGI was used in The Legend of Oki, O-C-H-I. Really whimsical. Has a very fairy tale-like, feel to it. And the special effects would be beyond belief. Emily Watson's in it. You barely even recognize her. Willem Dafoe's in it. So yeah, Legend of Oki, 5 stars. Definitely watch it. All right, those are the screeners we're going to go through today. There are others we will go through at other points, but those are what I would watch if I were you, and ones that I wouldn't watch if I were you. We'll be back with part 2 of the
It's
Karel
broadcasting
Cast. Talk
from
about
a completely different point of view. Yours. Listen daily to the Karel Cast on your favorite streaming service.
Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know. Now it's showtime.
Are we the problem with the airlines? Our transportation secretary seems to think so. We're going to talk about his recommendations. Also, 10 fears baby boomer has that Gen Y and Gen Z just don't get. We're going to talk about that as well.
Uncensored, unfiltered, unhinged. It's the Karel Cast. Listen daily on your favorite streaming service.
It is the Karel Cast. Welcome back to part two. So our transportation secretary has put out some guidelines for the holidays for those of you flying. Now, he hasn't taken airlines to task for canceling and not refunding or for treating you like chattel or the other things, the horrible things that airlines do if you're not rich. Instead, he wants to talk about you and I. And the first thing, and the reason is violence on airlines has risen 1,100%. Not 50%, not 100%, not 500%. Violence on airlines has risen 1,100%. While there used to be 10 or 12 incidents a year, now there's literally 1,000. Worldwide, there are just so many incidents now of people being violent on planes. You've seen the post. People yelling, people screaming, people being arrested, people being pulled off for all kinds of different reasons. Someone's wearing a MAGA shirt, or someone's wearing a MAGA hat, or someone's, kicking the back of your seat, or somebody, or whatever. Violence has risen on airlines. And many, many, many people that work on the airlines say stewardess or a flight attendant, they say that they don't feel safe anymore because each of them has experienced a passenger getting out of control. They have literally had to duct tape passengers to their seats. And this just didn't happen prior. And now it is happening. So to combat that, our Secretary of Defense has come up with some ideas. One is we should dress up better to get on a plane. And you know what? I think there's something to that. But I understand why we don't. Okay? Now, in the early days of flying was glamorous. And when you got on board, it was beautiful. You had gorgeous seats and they gave you wonderful service. And, everybody was dressed up, and it was, men wore suits and women wore dresses but it was a different flying experience than it is now, where you're crammed in and have to wait to get on and got to be there 2 hours early. And then you get on the plane and you're crammed in and you got to, fight for overhead bin space and all this other. So it was a different flying experience. However, I do believe flying has become like Walmart when it comes to what people wear. Now, I am all for dressing comfortably to fly. Absolutely. Absolutely. But you can be comfortable and still not be a slob. I have seen people get on planes literally in their pajamas. Not making this up. In their pajamas. I get it. You want to be comfortable? It's a long flight, whatever. However, again, you can be comfortable and still look nice. You don't have to wear a shirt. I mean, if you're ripped, you don't have to wear a suit, but you could wear a polo shirt, or you could wear, something. But nowadays it's t-shirt and sweats, it's shorts, it's sandals that you can slip off under your seat. People do not dress to fly. They just don't. Now, if you're flying business or first class, there is a dress code. But for coach, there isn't. And our transportation secretary thinks there ought to be. I'd love your comments on that. Because I actually kind of believe, I do, that there should be some decorum. You know, there really should be. And I don't know if that's classist or what. But it goes both ways. If airlines want to be respected, if they want their crews to be respected, then they need to act like they respect us, the passengers. And that's where the breakdown is. We are not acting like airlines deserve our respect because they don't give us any. Look at Frontiers and that other airline. What is it? It's yellow. Forget, but I never take it. But there's Frontiers and then that other one, the Loc Spirit. Not only do they not give you respect, they treat you like dirt. They treat you like absolute dirt. Unless you pay for this perk or that perk. And perks are...
If you're not visiting reallykarel.com daily, you're missing out. Get the podcast videos and the blog, including recipes at reallykarel.com. That's really KAREL.com.
Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know.
Now, I agree with Sandy in the chat room at youtube.com, reallykarel. And I said this. One of the reasons we are not dressing to fly is because coach is so cramped, so crowded, and so uncomfortable. We want to be as comfortable as we can be getting on the plane because we know we're about to be put through a harrowing event. However, look, again, I'll wear sweats on a plane. I will. But I'll also wear it with a nicer shirt. When I say nicer, I'll usually mean like a polo pullover or, something like I'm wearing now. Something like this. I don't wear T-shirts. I don't wear pajamas. I don't, I wear, something I'd go out to the store in. Now, do I get dressed up? Yes. If I'm in business or first, I get dressed up. I look nice. I look like Karel, the entertainer, I might have some flowy baggy thing on, or I might have something, very nice on. If I'm in coach, it's comfortable pants, maybe not sweats, but linen pants that are comfortable, and some sort of pullover shirt, not a button-up shirt, but some sort of pullover shirt, but a nice one, not, just a white T-shirt or some T-shirt with some writing on it or something like that. I'd love your thoughts about this. The airlines want us to respect them more. They want us to dress nicer. They want us to say please and thank you to the flight attendants. That's something the Transportation Secretary recommended, that we say please and thank you to the flight attendants, to the staff. Look, I've had staff at Southwest Airlines shout at me and tell me to stop shouting when I wasn't shouting at them. Sir, if you don't actually, I'm not going to be able, I'm like, ma'am, I'm just asking you a question. If you don't like your freaking job, get a new one. But if you say that to them, suddenly you're being unruly. They are too quick now to call the passengers unruly because sometimes a passenger has every right to be upset. And they're in the service industry. If they don't want to have to deal with unruly passengers, get a new job. But why are we turning so unruly on airplanes? I lay the blame with the airlines. Their lack of respect, they're stripping us. Now they want us to stand up and do these stand-up seats. They are stripping us of any kind of comfort, any kind of amenities, all in the name of profit. And subsequently, they're getting people who don't respect the whole ordeal of flying. Flying is a privilege. It's not a right. You don't have a right to fly unless you're a bird or a bee or an insect that flies. As a human, you have no right to fly. It's a privilege. But they don't treat us like it's a privilege to serve us. They treat us like we're an imposition. And so now we're behaving like impositions because that's how they treat us. Flight attendants can be nice or they can be some of the bitchiest people you've ever met. I once asked a flight attendant if I could move seats with my infant, and she told me that if I didn't shut up, the police would meet me at the gate. Exactly. Yep. That's where they are now. You try to ask them a simple question and they call you unruly. They have created this problem. They have created this problem. No, I don't believe that's impossible at all in the chat room. I believe that totally happened to you. I've had them one time. They were so rude to me about Ember that the two people seated by me told them to stop. I did the check-in. I always have her paperwork. I always have the TSA service animal form. I always have her regular form that she is a real service animal. All of that. I always have her medical chart. I have everything when I fly with Ember. And normally I don't get crap. Southwest Airlines twice has given me crap. And came on when we were about to take off and embarrassed me because of Ember. Well, let's see all your paperwork. Ma'am, they already checked this at the gate. As you see on my ticket, there's a code on the ticket that says service animal. Well, there's 2 animals on this plane and we only have one that's supposed to be here. So one of you is lying. And I said, well, ma'am, it's not me. And all of her forms are up in the carry-on, and we're about to take off. They held the plane and they were so rude about it that 2 people by me said, hey, you don't have to be that rude to him. He's complying. He's being nice. They told them to shut up and sit down. When I called Southwest about that, they refunded my flight, but they broke the law. They literally broke the American with Disabilities Act law with what they did. So I believe when you say that you asked if you could move with your child and they said shut up or they'll have police escort. I believe it. And they say the problem is us. We're not dressing appropriately. We're not being grateful to the flight attendants. There's no please and thank yous. There's no courtesy. Well, if you want courtesy, then be courteous. The airline employees are no longer courteous at all. At all. 5% of them, 95% have turned into assholes. Now, they'll say we turned them into assholes. And maybe we did. But that's how they are now. They are so ready for a fight. They are so ready that you're going to be the one that they're going to have escorted off the plane. But our transportation secretary says it's our fault. We're not dressing well. We're not being courteous. So he wants us all to dress up to get on a plane. Well, then give me better service. That's like asking you to dress up to go to McDonald's. You're going to fucking McDonald's. You ain't going to a nice restaurant. If you're going on Frontiers Airline, they're lucky people don't show up naked. And the way they search you when you go through I'm surprised there aren't naked airlines because they just search you and search you. So yeah, it was horrible what they did to me and Ember on that plane. It really was terrible that they were so rude to me. And she was already under the seat, asleep in her thing. And they did find the other person on the plane with the dog who had lied. They were nice to them. They were rude to me. And yet I'm the one that had all the paperwork, had the proper code on my ticket, the whole thing. Yeah, it was a mess. All right. I wanted to share with you something that I read that was really interesting to me. And it was 10 fears that boomers have that Gen Z and Gen Y that they don't, understand. There's also 10 things that boomers say that upsets them. But let's start with the 10 fears. I read this and it was really moving. I thought, oh my God. So these are fears that boomers have that Gen Y and Gen Z don't understand. See, because we've been young. So we already know what they're going through. They haven't been old. They don't know what we're going through. And so they judge us online. There's a big boomer move, remember OK Boomer and all of that. So fear number 1 that boomers experience, and you tell me in the comments if these sound familiar. Fear of becoming irrelevant. Many boomers grow up in a world that changed steadily, not at the breakneck speed we see today. So when everything from communication to creativity to community suddenly lives through screens, it can make them feel the world is moving on without them. This isn't about not knowing how to use an app. This is them actually feeling their identity slipping away. I fear being irrelevant. I really do. It's hard to get relevance in today's society. Number 2, fear of running out of time. Amen. Young people have no fucking clue what that feels like. I remember being 20 and 30. You didn't feel like you felt like you had all the time in the world. At 63, you know you don't. And you fear running out of time, that you're not going to be done. You're not going to accomplish what you want. You're not going to be done. You're going to fear running out of time. Number 3 is a big fear. Fear of the loss of independence. Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, they really don't understand that. I've seen medical shows where older people in their 80s, they don't want to go to the hospital with the paramedics because they're afraid if they leave their home with the paramedics, they won't come back. They'll be sent off to a home. They'll be kept in the hospital or they'll die. Fear of losing independence. That's a big fear that young people don't understand. Fear of financial instability after retirement. Again, that's something that young people just don't understand. And it's a very real fear. These fears that they're talking about here, they're not unfounded. Fears of becoming irrelevant, that's not unfounded. Fear of running out of time, that's not unfounded. You are. Fear of losing independence, that's certainly not unfounded. Fear of financial instability even after retirement, that's not unfounded. Boomers have lived through plenty of hard times, but they're afraid of the instability in the sense that things no longer follow the rules. Amen. Fear of losing your community. Wow. And that's a fear that, again, isn't unfounded. You do lose your community. Your world shrinks as you age. And you fear that. And loneliness becomes a big issue. Fear that the world they built is being criticized, not evolved. Amen. Younger generations seem that they're trying to erase the world that we built. Yep, they do. And so here we built this world and they're like, well, that world is shit. We need a new one. Number 7, fear of being a burden. I think that goes with fear of losing independence. But yes, we all feel we don't want to be a burden to our families or to our loved ones or to our kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews or friends. We just don't want to be. Fear that technology will erase human connection. It is. That fear is grounded in reality. There's nothing. Boomers worry that deeper connection is disappearing. And since they value relationships strongly, this fear is emotional, not logical. Well, it's pretty logical to me because technology is erasing human connection. Fears that their stories won't matter. Amen. Amen. We feel like our memories are buried in a world that no longer needs them. Amen. You know, as an older gay person, I see that our stories as older gay people, it doesn't matter to the young gays anymore. They criticize us. They berate us. If we happen to go into one of their clubs, they're like, what are you doing here? You're too old. They act like our stories of Stonewall and stories of fighting for same-sex marriage and the AIDS epidemic, like that they don't matter anymore. Well, that was years ago. They do matter. But to many, they don't. And fear of losing their sense of purpose. That's the one that hit home for me. I am struggling with that one. I'm trying to find my new purpose in this part of my life. Is it to be the biggest, baddest entertainer in the world? Is it to be the most successful singer, author, dancer, comedian, whatever? What is my purpose? Was my purpose on earth to help further gays and lesbians by being so out and so visible and to give people like you someone to connect with every day and make you feel less alone? Is that my purpose? I'm struggling with my purpose right now, where I need to be and what I need to be doing, where in the world I need to be and what I need to be doing in that spot. I have a lot of these fears of losing purpose, fears that our stories won't matter, fears that technology will erase human connection, fear of being a burden, fear that the world we made is being criticized, not evolved, fear of losing community, fear of financial instability, fear of losing independence, fear of running out of time, and of course, fear of being irrelevant. I have many of those fears. Do you? If you're over 55 or 60, do any of those sound familiar? You know? And a lot of younger people have these fears too. Gen X, because boomers, I think boomers should end at like 59. And Gen X should be people born in the 60s and 70s. If you're born in the 70s, you're in your 50s. So I think these apply to people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and up. I do believe that teenagers, 20s, and 30-somethings have a real problem understanding this. They also get upset with us when we say certain things. Like, well, why don't you just call them? They get upset at us for that. Because, they're like, well, didn't you use carrier pigeons? We don't use that anymore. So technology has evolved to where, do you know that 71% of cell phone users don't call people on the phone? 71% don't call their friends. So when you say, why don't you just call them? They get a little upset.
Patreon is the way to show you care. Subscribe today if you dare. Keep the show on there. Patreon is the way. Now it's showtime.
Some days I think my purpose really is just to take care of Ember. That's what it's like. Well, you have to do, So this has struck a nerve. A lot of you in the chat room are talking about this at youtube.com/Really Karel. I'd love to hear your comments down below. And by the way, you don't have to be a boomer to have these fears. A lot of these fears are relevant if you're over 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, because old age is now 40 and above in today's society. They look at people 40 and think they're old. My friend Devin just turned 40. He's like, oh, I'm old. I go, 40 is not old. I wish I was 40 again. So you could be a Gen Xer and not a boomer and have these fears. Okay, so don't, even though the story was labeled boomers, I'm telling you that Gen Xers could have these fears too. Anyone aging, anyone above 45 or 50 has these fears. Okay, they do. So let's not get hung up on the whole boomer thing. Okay, I believe it's just anyone aging. They also get mad if we say you just don't want to work that hard, because they say you don't understand how we work now, that YouTube is work. Being an influencer is a job. That the corporate hustle that you guys grew up with, we don't want that. They also say that, we won't accept what you guys accepted. Drudgery jobs that took all of your life and left you no time for living and all of that. They act like we fucking wanted to do that. This is my problem with young people. They condemn the work and how we used to work. At the same time, they don't realize we didn't want to be doing that. Corporate America did not give us a fucking choice. We couldn't become an influencer on Instagram or YouTube. We had bills to pay, and we had to pay for their snotty little diapers and their snotty little noses. All right. Put down your phone and look around. They get mad when we say that at them because they say they are looking around. They're just looking around a different way. Gen Z sees the phone as a tool. They say shaming us for too much screen time is like shaming someone in 1965 for using a landline too much. Well, my parents did. How many times did you hear, get off that damn phone? They don't like when we say back in my day either. They don't like that. They say, look, they say it's a judgment. When you say back in my day, you're judging us. It dismisses the realities in favor of a rose-colored past. Kids these days are too soft. They don't like when we say that because they're too soft. If you get upset because someone says kids these days are too soft, you're too fucking soft. You can't make a living doing that. People, they say, yes, we can. 6 figures and, blah, 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 blah. They get, why would you post that online? They don't understand why we would criticize that. They will when they try to get a job in the future and their dick pics come back to haunt them. So yeah, they get upset when we say things nowadays, but oh well. We got upset when our parents said stuff too. I think that's just the way, right? But going back to the fears, as you age, I think the number one thing is purpose. And I think that some of those fears tie into each other, like relevance and purpose tie into each other. If you fear you're becoming irrelevant, it's because you've lost your sense of purpose. We know you live longer if you have a sense of purpose. And that can be just getting up to take care of your pets, by the way. That could be your sense. My purpose is my dogs. If that's your purpose, great. Let's check the chat room. Gen Z believes baby boomers had a relatively easier path to do higher cost and consequent delay of personal milestones. I have experienced this backlash personally. Oh, yeah. No, I've experienced the backlash from the Gen Z and the Gen Ys. When I talk about not every, like, oh, God, everyone's a podcaster now and everyone's a broadcaster now. They're like, yeah, we are. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not. You've paid zero dues. You know nothing about the medium. You know nothing about the format. You don't just jump in. And yeah, Andrew and I jumped in, but I was an entertainer prior to being on talk radio. And it's very much the same. But someone who's never entertained a person in their life, someone who's never given public speeches, someone who doesn't, and suddenly they're a podcaster. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's like, no, you're not. You're a wannabe. And they don't like when I say that. And yeah, wannabes can make a ton of money. Ben Shapiro is a horrible broadcaster. Terrible. I'd never put him on radio. Ever. But he makes a shit ton of money. Charlie Kirk was a horrible podcast host. Alex Jones, a terrible show. Just as a show. Terrible. But they make a ton of money. When we got a cordless phone, she lost her mind. Oh, I know. Remember your parents used to find you by following the cord to the room? Oh, yes. I feel empty without my dog, Karel. Well, because you are. Get another one. There's plenty out there wanting you to love them. All right. So that's right. Relatives don't call you anymore. Nowadays, a relative posts on Facebook or whatever, and they think that's keeping up with the family. They think that's staying in touch. By the way, I call people. I call Steve. I call Heather. I call Tyler. I call Hannah. We actually speak on the phone. I call my sister. I call people. I still believe because texts have no inflection, and I believe a personal conversation is the best. So I call people. And I know that's out of date. I know it's old, but whatever, I do it. And there's something to hearing someone's voice. But relatives barely call each other now. Well, I posted on Facebook. Didn't you see I was having the Thanksgiving? Why didn't you come? You didn't call and invite me? Well, no, I invited everybody on Facebook. They all think we're a bunch of get off my lawn. But guess what? If you want a green lawn, you got to keep people off of it. Now, I would never tell people to get off my lawn. It's grass. Play on it. Have a good time. Dig it up, tear it up. We'll plant new. I wasn't that person. But I get it. Nowadays they act like, oh, I don't have to do anything to keep everything nice. Someone will keep it nice for me. No, it's your responsibility to keep. Look what they're doing to the planet. I am Karel. Be who you want to be, so don't hurt anybody. We'll be back tomorrow, but have a happy Thanksgiving in case you don't check in. We'll be back on Monday as well of next week and all of that, but we will be taping shows for Christmas. So in the end of December. So, meanwhile, leave your comments, like, subscribe. Thank you, patrons. I love you. We're going to do a call the week.
It's broadcasting from a completely different point of view. Yours. Listen daily to the Karel Cast on your favorite streaming service.